Sometimes we really drill down on today's tough question. Other times I want it to be a little bit more open-ended. So that's what I'm going to do today. And I want your comments, and I'm going to go to them more often than before off the top of the show, because I just want your thoughts. First of all, Caleb, on Tennessee and where they stand at number 7 in the college football playoffs first ranking that came out on Tuesday night, which was the major news of the evening, depending on where you stand. So, Caleb, number 7, I thought that the college football playoff committee might do something quirky, like make them a 6 or a 10 to get people talking. You thought they would be 8. In a sense, 7 is a little bit quirky, higher than most people believe, not just you, but most of the experts at ESPN. And also, I believe the mock draft at The Athletic even had them 9. So I think most people thought 8 or 9. So maybe this is a little bit quirky. Let's just dig into it. What does this tell you about Tennessee and the respect or lack thereof? Some of you might think they should be 5 or 6, although that's a hard argument to make. I will tell you this, a couple of the things that we brought up yesterday. Number 1 was, would Tennessee get the same respect as a defensive-minded team that they got in 2022 as an offensive-minded team? Well, no, they're not undefeated, and they weren't named number 1, but I think they got strong respect being at number 7. So I think those college football playoff committee members, at least to some extent, did their job. We'll see what happens in a few weeks. The other thing that I want to point out, and I asked Caleb about this yesterday because I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a preview, and that is 7 right now does not mean you're hosting a college football playoff game. It will in the final rankings, but it does not now because of the automatic bids. So to me, Tennessee is right on the cusp, right, Caleb?
Yes, but if the rankings today bore out, Tennessee would host a college football playoff game because there were teams in 3 different conferences ahead of Tennessee as of right now. Now, the assumption is those 3 conferences, those teams would all win their conference title. So the only one below Tennessee is BYU. BYU would be the 4th seed, but that would only drop Tennessee to the 8th seed in the college football playoff. As an 8th seed, they would play a home game, and if it ended today, they would play it at home against Indiana, which, I mean, if you're Tennessee, that's like playing a group of 5 school if you follow Day's logic. So,
and that would be ultra groovy. The point I wanted to make, though, is just because you're 7, you're not playing 10. Just because you're 8, you're not playing 9 right now. As a matter of fact, when you factor into those bids, Tennessee would essentially be 8. Now, I'm a person who doesn't like the auto bids, and I understand the importance of them, but I would just rather it be the top 12 teams. Nevertheless, Tennessee is in prime position to host a college football playoff game if they take care of their business. Now, Tennessee is going to be about, based off the gambling people that I've talked to, about a 7 to 7.5 point underdog, Caleb, to Georgia. So if Tennessee loses by just a touchdown to Georgia, do you think they hold this position, Caleb Calhoun, or is this something they're going to go out and have to fight for?
I think they do hold this position because I think that, look, I'm just going to say it, Dave, and this is something, and maybe you think this is worth it because despite the money loss, but something you said would happen. There is a lot of bias through the SEC in these college football playoff rankings. And there is a default of if you're in the SEC, you're going to get ranked higher. Alabama is the only 2-loss team in the top 12 that would go to the college football playoff right now. Oregon and Ohio State are 1 and 2, but Georgia's number 3 at 7-1. They put Georgia ahead of Miami, who's undefeated. They put 7-1 Texas ahead of 7-1 Penn State. They put 7-1 Tennessee ahead of undefeated Indiana. There was a lot of favoring of the SEC. So I think that if Tennessee plays Georgia close, barring other things work themselves out in the playoff, I don't really see how they would lose their positioning too much. I think last night, and this is what I wrote this yesterday, by the way, regardless if you're worried about 10-2 keeping Tennessee out of the playoff as a Tennessee fan, you shouldn't be. As long as they don't get blown off the field with Georgia, if they go 10-2, they're in the college football playoff. That's clear as day now.
Okay, but in all fairness, the last time that game was at Georgia, Tennessee, I can't remember the spread. I think it was about 12.5, but they did get blown off the map essentially. So that is a possibility. And I want to go to Steven's question because I think it's very pertinent. Steven says, Dave, do you and Caleb believe we have to win out to be the only way to guarantee, and he chooses, very good, Steven, you choose a very good word, and guarantee a spot in the college football playoff? I think they're in the college football playoff with a loss to Georgia and probably still host a home game. And I think Neyland Stadium, from a political perspective, helps in that regard because they would love that backdrop. But Caleb, Stephen used the word guarantee. The only way to guarantee would be to win out.
Is it though?
I think it's 95%, but guarantee is a strong word. That's kind of like when you visit with your, let's say, mortgage guy, and you say, he says, hey, I can get you this rate, but to guarantee it, you've got to put down earnest money and or be pre-approved. But I can get you this rate. To me, you only get in the college football playoff as a guarantee if you win out. But I still believe 95% that you would make it. Speaking of, we'll see what the interest rates do in the future now that we've changed in the government. But you can always go to Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chatmortgage.com. They'll help you with your credit. They did so with mine. Chat with 2 T's, mortgage.com. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. So are you willing to say guarantee by just losing close to Georgia and winning out?
Yeah, I'm willing to say guarantee. I'm absolutely willing to say guarantee.
But what if there are, didn't you come up with a concept in which there could be 6 10-2 teams or just 5 10-2 teams?
Yeah, but it looks like they're going to favor Tennessee if they do that. I mean, they have Tennessee at 7 and Alabama at 11, and Alabama is 6-2, and Tennessee's beaten Alabama. You think they're going to drop Tennessee that much if Tennessee loses to Georgia? I don't think they will. And that doesn't even.
I think my 5% of doubt is from distrust of the college football playoff media, college football playoff committee, and what they did to Tennessee in 2022, dropping them behind Alabama.
Yeah, but that wasn't consequential because neither of them actually went to the college football playoff. And also, as John Adams accurately pointed out yesterday, it wasn't the same record in Alabama being ahead. It was Alabama, even though Tennessee beat Alabama, they beat them at home. Alabama lost 2 close games on the last second. And Tennessee got draxed by South Carolina 63-35. Dave, if you were honest with yourself and you were watching that Tennessee-South Carolina game, you would have said, yeah, that Alabama team's better.
No, I wouldn't have. I would have chalked that up to a really bad game, and I would have dug into it and realized that Jeremy Banks acted like a goofball heading into that week. Now, what I would have factored in is that Hendon Hooker was not going to be there. And that happened to Florida State last year. I think if you're putting together a TV show, and don't forget, this happened, this may be before your time, but this happened to John Higgins too. I was told that Tennessee was the 65th team in a 64 NCAA basketball tournament, but they lost John Higgins because he decided to take 4 high-level math classes, and you had to pass 6 hours. He took 12. And you had to pass 6 hours to make postseason play, or there was a ban in order, and he got banned because he only passed 1 of them. So outside of that, I think Tennessee's in great shape. I also don't think they want to get drubbed by Georgia.
No, but that's the whole thing. They can't get blown out by Georgia. Style points are going to matter in this college football playoff. That's clear as day. And that was the other part of what hurt them in 2022, Dave. You and I watched that Georgia game. Georgia beat Tennessee 27-13. That game could have easily been 44-6 if they wanted it to. And the truth of the matter is, I think committee members watched that game and said, there's no way that Alabama would get punched around like that the way Tennessee did against Georgia. And you don't think that either. You know, Alabama would have put up a fight with Georgia better than what Tennessee put up against Georgia that year. And so I think when you look at it that way,
they had the signs and all that stuff.
Well, Georgia didn't have the signs. South Carolina had the signs.
Well, yeah, South Carolina had the signs. I thought you were reverting back to that game.
No, I'm talking about Georgia. The way Georgia handled Tennessee that year too. It was a 27-13 game. Dave, you and I went live afterward, and what did we say? We said that it could have easily been 40-0 if Georgia wanted it to be. And so what I was saying was that, do you think there's any chance in 2022 Alabama has that type of drubbing against Georgia that Tennessee had?
No.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the committee saw that. And Vegas agreed with the committee. Vegas would have favored Alabama over Tennessee on a neutral field, even though Tennessee beat Alabama that year. So I think when you take all of that into account, yes, Tennessee is going to have to put up a fight against Georgia. They can't get blown out by Georgia. They have to make that game competitive. But if they make that game competitive, they're not only a lock to go to the playoff, provided they win every other game, they're still in contention to host a playoff game if they make it competitive with Georgia. I'll go that far.
Okay, competitive, we're saying a score, a touchdown,
yes,
which is
we're saying
basically
a score.
what we've been told by our gambling expert, Tyler White, that number will be. So if they stay within 7 points, one score, Tennessee hosts a playoff game, you're willing to go out on that limb right now?
I'll go there. Yeah, if they stay within 7, Tennessee hosts a playoff game.
Okay, the show represented by Banks and Jones. Poll question, tease it forward, Caleb, is?
What are your thoughts on Tennessee's number 7 college football playoff ranking? Love it. Vols have a clear path. Worried a loss may knock them out.
All right, stay tuned. The show represented by Banks and Jones. We'll have the answer to that poll question in 30 seconds. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, Caleb, what do you got as far as the answers to the poll question?
All right, so what did you make of the Vols number 7 CFP ranking? 60% say worried a loss may knock them out. 40% say love it, Vols have a clear path.
I think you have to say love it. Vols have a clear path based off
totally
number
agree.
7. There's still a 5% of me that doesn't believe that the college football playoff would do the right thing because of either politics or one issue or another, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. David said the only way we lose to Georgia is if the offense shows up or not. It'll be put up or shut up. Same goes for Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. I'm not worried about Mississippi State at all, slightly worried about Vanderbilt, but Tennessee's offense, I believe, has hit another level, Caleb, and if they have, then I think Tennessee will be fine in the remainder of their games, and that also has to do with keeping it close against Vanderbilt. So, I'm sorry, against Georgia. Tennessee and Georgia will be one heck of a matchup. There's no question about that. And I will say this. I believe Tennessee has the quarterback advantage. And I've said that before. People think I'm absolutely insane, but I am going to stand by that.